introduce our first speaker. Jeff Owens is an internationally recognized expert in threat assessment and management and effectively dealing with negative conflict. A former police hostage negotiator at the Honolulu Police Department, Jeff learned to deal with people from all walks of life in virtually every imaginable situation. A founding member of the department's first hostage negotiating team, 20 plus years of serving with the HPD in-house expert on interpersonal conflict and violence, and in 2022 he launched his business in Transcend Inc. to train and consult full-time. Please give a round of applause for Jeff.
Thank you very much. Aloha kako. Now, even if you're not from Hawaii, and everybody here kind of looks like you are, everybody worldwide recognizes aloha as a greeting whenever we start something, right? And but you'll notice I added in a different word. And a lot of us locally known, we know that kako adds to it to welcome everyone, including the speaker, including the person giving the welcome statement. And what's that got to do with what we're going to talk about today? It actually has something to do with it. Because when we say aloha kako, we say we are welcoming everyone on equal basis. We're going to be speaking today about using the power of respect, regardless of people's position or relationship. And when we say aloha kako, it says we are all here together. I happen to be privileged at the moment to be in, we'll call it the leadership role of being at the front of the room to speak to you. But I'm under no delusion that that makes me any better of a person than anybody else. And in point of fact, I'm not any more knowledgeable. In fact, you're far more knowledgeable about your profession and your field than I will ever be. But I have some knowledge about mine that I'm going to share. So we're starting the day with the concept that we're going to be sharing on equal terms with respect for one another. Now, I'm going to be talking today to you about using the power of respect to increase employee engagement, retention, and productivity. But I'm going to be speaking about it from the perspective of concepts. You see, concepts are like tools. Tools can be versatile, right? They can be used in a lot of different ways. You can use a screwdriver to screw in, but you can also use the handle to pound it. It's not what it's designed for, but you can do it, right? So we're going to be speaking primarily in terms of concepts today. And what I'm going to be doing is giving you concepts for your leadership toolbox. Concepts that can be adapted to different people, different circumstances, different situations. Concepts by their very nature are without firm boundaries. They can be adapted. But when we talk about absolutes, this is the rule, this is the standard, then there's a place for that. There's a place for that when we're going to talk about regulatory compliance, safety issues, things of that nature. But otherwise, they're restrictive. And what we want to do is we want to be opening up our minds to be able to be more innovative and to be more creative in the accomplishment of our leadership goals. So that's really what we're going to be doing here today and the approach that we're going to be using. Now, the primary leadership tool that each and every one of us have, the most effective way to become efficient and effective and powerful as a leader is the leadership tool of respect. To be able to, now respect, by the way, doesn't mean that we are weak. It doesn't mean that we're giving in. It doesn't mean that we ignore bad behaviors. It doesn't mean that we just appease people because they're unhappy. No, the power of respect is going to have three elements to it that I'm going to talk to you about several times here this morning. But what it does include is being open-minded, being willing to listen, being able to establish rapport, being able to use empathy as a leadership tool as we move forward in carrying out our duties and getting, what we want to do is get mutually agreeable solutions when we are faced with leadership problems. And when we're open-minded and we're willing to accept that just because somebody's different, just because somebody has a different view, doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. It just means they're different. And maybe by giving open consideration to those differences, we may gain a new viewpoint that will help us to come up with a better solution. So I'm talking about respect. Everything I'm going to talk about today is about respect. But why? Why is that such a big deal? Where does that come from? Why is that my focus here? In the introduction here, there was a brief statement about the fact that I was with the Honolulu Police Department. In point of fact, I was 30 years with the Honolulu Police Department. And then I realized I just couldn't adjust to the lifestyle. I'm like a slow learner. But 30 years with the Honolulu Police Department. In that time, I experienced a lot of different things. Now, everybody in Hawaii knows somebody in the police department, right? And so whenever I say, oh, I was in the police department, they go, oh, where'd you work? Because maybe you know my friend. Well, I was in a long time ago, and I worked all over the place. I am the poster child for shiny object syndrome. So I'd be doing something and I'd be working at it for a couple of years in the department, and after a while I go, you know what, that looks like that'd be interesting to do. I think I want to go do that. And I put in a request to move around, and I moved around all over the department every couple of years because it made me, I found it interesting to do. But one of those assignments was when I was a detective, and I was selected to be a hostage negotiator. In point of fact, I was selected to be the first hostage negotiator in Hawaii. Now, the interesting thing is, at that point in time, the whole concept of hostage negotiation was new in law enforcement. There wasn't even a training program for it. I had to make it up as I went along. I was doing on-the-job training. Somebody's holding a gun to your head, and I'm hoping I don't make a mistake. Luckily, I never did. But what was happening is I would get called out. And usually I get these called out at like 0:30 in the morning when people are too drunk, too emotional, or both, and they're doing really stupid things, like not letting the other person out of the house or the apartment. Or the crook was too stupid to get away before the cops arrived. And then they found themselves in this situation that they really didn't want to be in. Pause. A little bit of a learning point here. Sometimes when we deal with people in situations, especially difficult situations, keep in mind, they may have put themselves into a situation they really didn't want to be in. And oftentimes all I needed to do is I'd get that call 0:30 in the morning, I'd wake up, I'd wash my face, I'd get in my car, I'd drive down to wherever that location is, and by the time I get there, this person's starting to sober up or calm down, realize they don't want to be in this situation, and all I needed to do was help them find a face-saving way out of this situation. Now, I developed kind of a spiel. So I would talk to these people. I'd get there and I'd get on the phone with them. Those are the days of landlines. We didn't have cell phones. And I'd get on the phone with them. And I had like an opening spiel. My name is Owens. I'm with the police department. I'm here to work with you on this problem. And then we'd talk about the situations. I would ask them questions. What happened? Why are we in this situation? How did this come about? And after they would vent a little bit, all I needed to do was kind of like, you know what? It's not that big a deal. Nobody's really got hurt. Yeah, there'll be some consequences, but it's not that big of a deal. Why don't you let the person out? Why don't you just come on out? And they would. And I'm like, oh, I'm pretty good at this. But it all started with a phone call. You see, I got a phone call, and it wasn't at 0:30 in the morning. I got a phone call. It was at 10:17 in the morning. Now, as a police detective, you think I'd understand a clue when it's right in front of me. But I didn't recognize the clue. The second clue was that the call came from the lieutenant of the SWAT team. That was a clue because the SWAT team had never called me out before. They weren't used to working with negotiators. And I get a call from the lieutenant. Hey, Detective Owens, We're down at the harbor. We got a guy isolated. He'd fired some rounds at people on the shore from a boat. Nobody got hurt. He's fine. But we got our snipers in place and we can take him out. But the commander says, I'm supposed to call you up, like you're going to come talk to him or something like that. I'm sure you're not going to do that. Oh, yes, I am. I'm going to come down there. I'm going to talk to him. He's going to give up and I'm going to be the hero. So I get in my car and I go blazing down to Kewalo Basin, jump out of my car, look for the first police officer I can see. Hey, so where's this guy? Oh, Detective Owens, he's around over there. Okay, I'm going to go talk to him. Hey, Detective Owens, hey, don't worry, I'm going to go talk to him. Detective Owens, hey, I'm the negotiator. Don't interrupt my train of thought. Here in Hawaii, we're really, really good at being passive aggressive, yeah? So the officer's response is, okay. And I walk right up to this guy and I'm standing just a couple of feet away from him and I start my spiel. My name is Owens. I'm with the police department. I'm here to work with you on this situation. Now at this point in time, he's supposed to be preparing to give up. But apparently no one told him. Instead, he reaches behind, he pulls out the gun and he puts it right in my face. The officer had been trying to tell me he still had the gun. Gaining information before making decisions is another good learning point. So he's got the gun right in my face and he starts to yell and scream, calling me every name in the book, insulting me, embarrassing me, attacking my dignity. What did I want to do? The exact same thing you want to do when somebody gets in your face, when somebody is rude, when somebody is confrontational, uncooperative, especially if you're in a leadership position and now they're countering you, they're challenging you, they're being insubordinate. I wanted to tell him off. I wanted to put him in his place. Who are you to talk to me like that? You can't talk to me like that. You're the bad guy, I'm the good guy. You're the crook, I'm the cop. You've got the gun and I don't. And I realized that if I did, he would pull that trigger. I can't run away. I'll never get my gun out of the holster. So I did the only thing I could do. To this day, I do not remember the exact words I used, but I started to talk to him. I didn't grovel, I didn't beg. I started to say things like, wait a minute, man, I didn't come out here with my gun on you. You don't have to have your gun on me. You can put that away. You don't need it. I didn't have mine on you. I'm here because I want to hear what's going on. I want to find out from you what caused this situation. How can we work our way through this? I respect you as a human being. Come on, man, let's talk about this. Tell me what's going on. And he did. And he started to tell me all his anger and all his hurt and all his frustration. Most of it made no sense whatsoever. But I listened. And I sincerely listened to try to understand. And after he'd vented for a period of time, and I provided active listening, yes, okay, great. After a while, I said, you know what? Why don't you just put the gun down? Let's go ahead and close this thing up. And he did. And after he was taken away, and everybody congratulated me on what a great negotiator I am, and what a great thing I did, I literally collapsed. I collapsed sitting next to my car on the ground, covered in cold sweat, because I realized I had almost died. And I kept asking myself, what is it that you did that stopped that person from pulling the trigger? And after a lot of thought over many days, I realized it's not what I had done, it's what I had not done. I did not return the anger, the hurt, and the disrespect that that person was showing to me. Instead, I respected myself, I respected that person, and I respected the situation. And those are the three elements that I'm going to be talking to you about today that are so powerful as leadership tools. I respected myself, I respected the other, I respected the situation. And I found that I could apply that in other aspects of my life. And I advanced in my career in great part because of those three simple concepts, those three simple ideas. That when I dealt with people, I recognized that people say foolish things, people get emotional, people get their egos in the way. But if I could respect myself, respect the other, and respect the situation, we could find mutually agreeable ways to work through the situation. And that became the primary leadership tool of respect. So hopefully this is a tool that you can put in your leadership toolbox to move forward with. Now, I get ahead of myself on the slides. Why is this so important? Because when people feel respected, they tend to return respect. Generally not at the same level. When I treated that man with respect, even when I didn't want to, even when I didn't believe he deserved it, but when I treated him with respect, he gave me just a little respect in return. And then we built on that until we got a satisfactory resolution to the situation. So the power of respect has become a major principle in my life, and I hope you're going to see where it's going to be a useful tool for you. But let's talk about some of the things in your business and your work environment that respect is impacted by respect. How's about employee performance? Employees who feel that they are respected and appreciated, employees who feel that they are contributing and that their contribution is recognized perform at higher levels than those employees who do not feel the same way. You've got employees perhaps that they do the job because they don't want to get fired. But what we really want to do is inspire that person to want to perform at a higher level. And when we treat people with respect in the workplace, they feel appreciated and they feel inspired to perform at a higher level. Team cohesion and cooperation. When team members are respectful of the differences that each of them bring, and by the way, differences are valuable to us. We want diversity of opinions. We want diversity of viewpoints. Differences are valuable. They help us to be innovative, to come up with new and better solutions. And when people are respectful, you have a more powerful team. You come up with better solutions. The fastest way to destroy a good team is to allow disrespect to exist and not address it appropriately. Here's a little meme that you might want to keep in mind. There should always be an appropriate response to behavior. That's what we deal with is behaviors, right? There should always be an appropriate response to behavior. There should always be an appropriate response to inappropriate behavior. There should always be an appropriate response to appropriate behavior. Appropriate means it scales itself according to what that behavior is. And when we hold people appropriately accountable when they're not performing at the appropriate level, that helps the team, that helps everyone in the organization, it helps you, and that helps that person so they can make the corrections needed. When we recognize good performance, people feel appreciated and respected, and they perform at a higher level. Customer relations. Well, let's face it, if you don't treat your customers with respect, you're not going to have customers, are you? So we want to create that organizational culture of respect so that every interaction of every person in the organization, whether it's internal or external, is based on the concept of treating people with respect. Business success is enhanced by that, and it reduces the risk of negative behaviors. How's about workplace violence? There's a negative behavior. It is a major problem in the American workforce today. And that's not just the person coming into the room with a gun and shooting people. Workplace violence can be people intimidating and making other people in the workplace feel fearful. People do not threaten and people do not harm those who treat them with respect. Creating the organizational culture of respect significantly reduces the risk of workplace violence occurring. How's about sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is disrespect because of the person's gender. Somehow a dysfunctional idea that it's okay to make unwanted sexual advances, sexual comments, touching that's inappropriate and unwanted, simply because of the person's gender. An organizational culture of respect prohibits that from happening and reduces the risk of all of the legal and employment issues that can come as a result of that. How's about unlawful discrimination? Unlawful discrimination is disrespect because that person is not like me or my group. And when we create the organizational culture of respect, everyone in the organization feels welcome and appreciated and respected, regardless of their gender, their age, their nationality, their political views, or whatever it might be. Because there is that al-hakako. Everyone is on an equal basis within our work environment. So there's an enormous amount of benefits to be gained by creating the organizational culture of respect. How's about the very big one? Employee engagement and retention. Employee engagement and retention is one of the major problems for most employers in the United States and here in Hawaii. We're all struggling to hire good employees and to retain those employees. We bring them on board, and then we train them, and we help them develop their skills, and now we want to help keep them. When we create the organizational culture of respect, that will stay with us. People tend to stay where they feel appreciated, where they feel respected, where they feel that their contribution to the success of the organization is valued. Now, it's simple enough to say that. Is it easy to do it? No. It can be really, really challenging, right? It can be very, very challenging to create that for us. But we want to create that environment. We want to create that organizational culture where people feel respected and appreciated. And the single most effective way to do that, maybe you already have a great organizational culture, but maybe you have some work to do. So the single most effective way to address or correct or support, improve, advance the organizational culture of respect. Fill in the blank there. What would go in that blank for you? What is it that you need to focus on in your organization to become better? And the single most effective way to address whatever that issue might be is to create that organizational culture of respect. I've had the privilege of being in leadership roles in the police department. I was privileged to be in leadership roles in major corporations. And that idea of treating people with respect helped me to be more effective in my role. And where that all came from? Down on the streets, dealing with people in the real world, not just in negotiations, not just a hostage, but just learning that when people are treated with respect, they tend to perform at higher levels. Now, I've talked about this organizational culture of respect. I've been saying it over and over and over. You might get tired of me hearing it, of hearing me say it over and over and over, the organizational culture of respect. Well, I've talked to you about why it's important, but what we need to do now is, what is it? What is an organizational culture of respect? The organizational culture of respect is one in which everyone embraces their individual responsibility to be respectful of others, of self, and of situations. Sound familiar? Where did that come from? In the organizational culture of respect, each individual is encouraged to be respectful to others. How do we do that? By modeling the behaviors that we want them to have. As leaders, modeling the respectful behavior, not do as I say, but do as I do. Treating everyone within our organization with respect is critically important. Because if we just talk about it, but we're not modeling it ourselves, nobody's going to take it seriously. But if we model it, and we start to encourage those in our organizations, those in our businesses, to act as we act, with respect towards everyone, that is where the organizational culture starts and grows. And one person responds positively, and then another one responds, and then 2, then 4, then 8, and it goes on and on. And that is how we inculcate it into our organizations. Now, we need to have balance, of course, right? We need to have that respect for self, respect for my role as a leader, respect for my obligations to set the standard, to model and demonstrate the behaviors that I want from the people within my organization. We need to have people having respect for others, because if we don't have that, nothing's going to work. We need to have everyone accept the fact that there are different approaches, different opinions, different ways to do things, and just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong, and that together we can use those differences to come up with better ways to do things. We have to be respectful of situations in your businesses. You deal with varying situations. Things don't always work out as planned. Obstacles arise. The unexpected happens. We need to be respectful of that and adapt to that. But in all of that also, we still need to have balance. We need to have balance in our lives, balance in our organization. We have to balance the relationship between the external customers, the internal customers, and the best interests of the organization, of the business itself. As I already said, we do that by having appropriate response to behaviors. Now, this requires strength, courage, honesty, and balance to achieve these things. Not easy to do. It's easy to talk about these things. It's not all that easy to do. But I'm going to try to help give you some tools that'll make it a little bit easier for you. Now, I'm going to do that by starting out here by asking you what might be some uncomfortable questions. But it's okay. You don't have to answer them out loud. All you got to do is answer them to yourself. Now, by the way, just as a mention here, I'm glad people are taking notes. That's a really great thing. And if you want to keep taking notes, that's a good thing. But just so you know, at the end of our time together, I'm going to give you access to a 15-page PDF that has everything I've talked about. So you'll be able to just download that. I'm going to have a QR code. You'll be able to download that, and that way you'll have all this information for you. Okay? So I'm going to give you that there, right? So I'm going to ask you some questions. Answer them to yourself. 1, how do you create and improve an organizational culture of respect? Well, do you have a mission and value statement or something of equivalent, whatever you might call it? Most businesses do, right? So here's a question for you. Do all of your employees know them? If I was to walk into your work environment on a random day and walk up to just any random employee and say, look, you don't have to quote it word for word, but can you tell me the meaning of the mission and values of this business, of this organization, of this company? Would they be able to do so? Because if they can't, what good are your mission and value statement? How can you expect people to pursue success of the mission, to operate in accordance with your values if they don't know what they are. So I encourage you to make sure that the mission and values that are incorporated into your business are real, and that you make sure that everyone in the organization knows that they are real. Second question, do you model and exemplify them? If I walked into your business organization and I walked up to the random employee and I said, lead me to the person who best exemplifies the mission and values of this company, would they lead me to you? Uncomfortable questions. If they lead me to you, fantastic, great. You are on track. You are on point. You're doing what you need to do to have that organizational culture of respect. But if they're not, why would you expect them to take the mission and value statement seriously also? So make it real in your organization. How's about this? Most companies have some kind of a statement along the line of, our employees are our most valued aspect. Our employees are the primary concern. We value our employees above and beyond everything. Something along those lines. Do you have something like that in your company? Most companies do. It might be in the employee handbook. It might be on the wall in the break room. So here's a question. Do your employees believe that? Notice I didn't ask if they know it. Of course they know it. They've been told it. It's in the employee handbook. It's on the poster on the wall. They know it, but do they believe it based on the way they are treated within the organization? Not just by the leadership, but by everyone else, because the leadership requires the culture of respect to be live and real within the organization. And here's maybe the most uncomfortable question of all. Do you honestly know the answer to that? You know, years ago, there was a thing about management by walking around, which is something I kind of still subscribe to. Knowing what is going on in your organization is important so that you can adapt and adjust accordingly. So these are kind of questions that are going to help you. And here's another one. Our employees understand the value to themselves and company of working cooperatively to accomplish our organizational goals. They have the means and support to contribute their knowledge, skill, and ability toward the common goals and are appropriately rewarded for their efforts. And you need to ask yourself, is that a yes or no in my business? If you can answer yes to all of those, fantastic. Actually, you could probably come up here and give the class. If it's, well, some of them are yes, some of them I'm not sure, maybe, then you know what, actually that works out to a no. And that's okay. You're like most companies. We recognize we have some work to do. And when we're honest with ourselves and we have the answer is no, then we're being honest with ourselves and we know we have a starting point to make changes for the better. So, let's address the big one, employee engagement and retention. The reason we want to create the organizational culture of respect is because employees who feel respected tend to stay, and when they tend to stay, retention is a non-issue. Employees who feel engaged desire to achieve. I said earlier on that we want to inspire our employees to perform well. Notice I didn't say motivate them, make them, cause them. Motivate, make, cause have their place. There's nothing wrong with those. But they require external stimulus to cause the person to act. When we inspire our employees, then they act because they have an inwardly developed desire to perform at the highest possible level. That is the goal that we want with our organizational culture of respect. So it starts at the top with you at the pinnacle of the leadership mountain. You must model the desired behaviors. Adopting those concepts, respect for self, others, and organization, is going to help you to advance your company. Keep this in mind. You lead people. You manage things, projects, all of the other stuff, things, projects, jobs. You manage those things. You see, lead means somebody has to follow. Projects, jobs, those are inanimate. They can't follow. You manage those, and managing is important. We need good, effective managers. But keep in mind, even the managers are leading the people to perform the tasks that accomplish the job, the goal, the project. So always focus on the people more so than the processes and the project itself, because it's the people that are going to make things happen for you. Using empathy is a very, very powerful tool to create rapport, and rapport encourages people to be inspired. Now, empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is feeling as the other person feels, agreeing with their feeling. Empathy is understanding how the other person feels. I had no sympathy for the man with the gun in my face, but I had empathy that helped me to understand where he was coming from and why, and I could adapt my behaviors to lead him to the outcome that I wanted in that situation. As leaders, use empathy to create the rapport to lead people to the outcomes that you want. And to do that, listening is more powerful than telling. When we are talking, we learn nothing. When we ask questions and listen, we gain information that we can use to create the outcomes that we want, to adapt our behaviors, to understand where that person is coming from, to get that basis for empathy, to create the rapport, to get the appropriate outcomes that we want. A really, really powerful tool for you here is to understand this. It's okay to disagree. Disagreement can be helpful. Disagreement can be valuable if that disagreement is going to help us come up with new and better solutions. It's okay to dislike. I did not dislike the man that had the gun in my face, but it's never okay to disrespect. And one other final little tool for you here is to understand that why informs what empowers how allows us to act on the why. When we ask the questions to learn to understand what is causing the behaviors, why are people acting the way they are doing, why are you acting the way that you're acting, then we can use that information to advance ourselves in creating the rapport necessary to get the solutions that we want. Now, I'm going very quickly here because I don't have much time left, but there's just a couple of things that I want to finish up with here. Respect, communication, and knowledge are very powerful tools to us. Respect encourages and embraces the dignity of value to self and others and removes the barriers to communication, and that removes the barriers to knowledge. Communication recognizes individual importance, encourages, builds positive relationship, demonstrates respect, and increases knowledge. And that knowledge produces understanding, displaces fear, builds trust, and promotes communication and respect. All of this will be in depth on that PDF, because I don't really have the time here to go into depth on all of these here. But I'll be available afterwards to talk about it also with you. The final thing I want to talk about here before I wrap this up is a brief talk about the law of aloha. Now, a lot of people don't know, but in Hawaii, there's an actual law on aloha. You can look it up, Hawaii Revised Statute, Section 5-7.5. Now, it's not a law that if you break it, you get arrested and go to jail. We'd have to lock up a lot of politicians. Did I say that out loud? It was a symbolic law to encourage people in elected and appointed positions of leadership to embrace the concept of aloha. And I'm just going to kind of summarize it by this. The law of aloha says that we must be willing to respect ourselves, acknowledge our right to exist and to be who we are. But along with that, we must also recognize the right of others to exist and to be who they are, even if they are different from us, even if they don't agree with us, even if we do not agree with them. That we all share the essence of being. The word aloha itself has in its root ha, and ha is normally defined as the breath of life. But when you think of that and even more in depth, the breath of life means the essence of existence, that everything that exists, every person, everything in the universe shares that energy of existence, that breath of life. So we all have something in common, one with the other, no matter how seemingly different we might be from one another. So I'm going to skip over a bunch of these slides very quickly. Just to tell you this, but I'm going to have one more thing. That PDF I talked about, if you do this QR code here, it's going to have a little survey that's going to ask you some questions. It's going to help me to understand, can I get better at what I do, which I know I can. It's going to ask you if have I been effective, I've been engaging, have I provided information of value to you. And then it's going to have click to receive your bonus. It's going to automatically download that PDF to you. If you don't want to do the QR code, you can just send me an email. I'll be happy to send it to you anyway. Okay. But that there just makes it really easy, and it gives me some information that'll be helpful to me. But while you're doing that, let me just wrap it up with one final thing. Something that I have found of use and value to me, not just in my professional life, not just in my business life, but in life in general. And it's kind of a summary of everything that I've said. And if nothing else makes any sense to you, I'm hoping that this will. And that is the very concept of respect itself. The power of respect that says never allow yourself or anyone under your authority to embarrass, humiliate, or attack the dignity of anyone, including yourself. Never self-depreciate, but also deal with the behaviors, the issues, the actions in a manner that does not embarrass, humiliate, or attack the dignity of the person. And if we can just simply put that into everything that we do, I truly believe that it will be aloha in daily action, and it will empower your leadership and help with your employee engagement, retention, and performance. So, mahalo and aloha, and thank you.